The silence that followed the final explosion was not the peace they had longed for, but a heavy, ringing emptiness. It settled over the citadel like a shroud, muffling the shouts of the surviving few into dry, hacking coughs. General Ilara lowered the scorched remains of her energy rifle. The air, thick with ozone and dust, tasted like metal and regret. They had won. The tyrant King Malachor, whose shadow had stretched across the realm of Aethel for 2 decades, was gone, vaporized into the smoky haze still swirling around the ruins of the throne room. The source of his power, the dark crystal known as the Heart of Night, lay shattered beneath Ilara's worn leather boot. Freedom was theirs. But as the adrenaline receded, the true cost began to seep into her bones. Ilara turned slowly, her gaze sweeping over the scene. The once grand chamber was a tomb. Marble columns lay cracked like splintered bones, and tapestries depicting Aethel's golden age were reduced to smoldering rags. And then there were the bodies. She found Cale first. He lay near the shattered dais, his hand still gripping the hilt of the blade he'd driven into Malachor's shield generator. The desperate act that had bought Ilara the precious seconds she needed for the final shot. Cale, the bright-eyed strategist, the one who always had a cynical joke ready, was utterly still. A single shard of the dark crystal was embedded in his chest. Ilara knelt, ignoring the burning sting in her own thigh where a bolt had grazed her. She didn't cry. The capacity for easy tears had been burned out of her years ago. She simply pressed 2 fingers to Cale's cold, pale neck, confirming the absence of a pulse. Aethel was free, but Cale would never see the sunrise on their free world. That was the immediate, bitter cost. A weak groan drew her attention. Captain Viridian, the stoic leader of the vanguard, was propped against a rubble pile, cradling a broken arm. His face was a mask of pain and grim elation. "General, it's done. We did it." Ilara managed a nod that felt heavy as stone. "We did. Captain, how many made it back here?" Viridian looked around, his eyes clouded with the tally he had already made. 8 of us, out of the 50 who breached the inner walls. 8. For 20 years of peace, the arithmetic was brutal. 50 brave souls had charged into the heart of darkness, and 42 of them had paid the ultimate price. A victory bought with the wholesale sacrifice of Aethel's finest. Later, as the first pale light of dawn crept through the ruined roof, painting the devastation in hues of gold and gray, Ilara finally stood outside the citadel gates, looking down at the silent, expectant city. Cheers would come soon. Aethel would sing their names and build monuments to their courage. But as she looked at her reflection in a puddle, a gaunt, scarred figure clutching a victory that felt as empty as a blown-out candle, she knew the truth. The scars of the battle were not just on the walls of the citadel or the bodies of the fallen. They were etched deep within the souls of the survivors. She had secured Aethel's future, but in doing so, she had traded a piece of her own humanity. The glorious outcome was achieved, but the loss incurred, the loss of innocence, of friends, of the simple joy of an unbroken life, made the triumph a profound and bittersweet cost. The peace was theirs, but the ringing silence of the aftermath was a constant reminder that victory, in its truest form, was nothing more than the most agonizing form of survival. The dust, a fine gray particulate born of shattered concrete and burned hopes, still hung in the air, catching the timid rays of the morning sun. Elias shielded his eyes, looking out over what remained of Sector Delta. The war had ended 3 weeks ago, not with a bang, but with a sudden, unnerving silence. The silence of victory, yet one that felt indistinguishable from defeat. The banner of the New Republic now fluttered limply from the highest, least damaged transmission tower, a promise of peace that felt paper-thin. Elias, a man whose hands knew the weight of a rifle better than a hammer, stood before the skeletal remains of the city library. It was here, in the rubble, that his new reality began. He wasn't a soldier anymore. The war machine had ground to a halt. He was, by necessity, a builder. His first task was simple: clear the main thoroughfare. He picked up a shard of metal, part of a drone he recognized, and tossed it onto a growing heap. The physical work was dull, repetitive, and exhausting, but it was the mental load that truly weighed him down. During the conflict, the purpose was absolute: survive, fight, win. Now the purpose was nebulous: live. He watched a woman, Mrs. Kalin, emerge from a makeshift shelter. She was carrying 2 empty buckets towards the communal water purification station, her face etched with a fatigue that no amount of sleep could fix. Her husband had been lost in the final surge. Elias offered a small, awkward nod. She returned it, a gesture devoid of emotion, a blank slate shared by everyone in the sector. They had traded mortal danger for a grinding, mundane insecurity. This was the core of the struggle. The external conflict had ended, but the internal one, the battle against despair, the fight to find a routine, the need to trust a future, had just begun. They were free, yet shackled by the past. Later that afternoon, a crew from the New Republic arrived in pristine white vehicles. A young official, crisp and overly cheerful, stepped out and began lecturing the small group of residents on the 5-year Reconstruction Initiative. We will restore infrastructure, establish new educational centers, and ensure total compliance with the new statutes, the official proclaimed, pointing dramatically at the ruins of the library. A new era of prosperity awaits. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Compliance. Statutes. Elias leaned on his shovel, a familiar tension tightening his jaw. It sounded less like a dawn than more like a subtly redesigned cage. The faces around him, Mrs. Kalin, old Mr. Gian who had lost his small bakery, the teenager who had lied about his age to fight, all shared the same look of weariness. The enemy was gone, but the power structures remained, simply rebranded. The fight for true autonomy, for a life defined by their own choices and not by mandates, was still ahead. Elias dropped his shovel. The metallic clang echoed in the uneasy air. He didn't speak to the official. Instead, he walked past the crowd and with the precision of a trained combatant began carefully stacking usable bricks from the rubble. He was no longer fighting against a nameless enemy or for a grand abstract idea. He was fighting for a foundation, a wall, a shelter. The struggle to rebuild was not just physical. It was a defiant, quiet act of self-determination. This new dawn was fragile, but the familiar, stubborn struggle to live free, to truly be home, was a fuel he still possessed. He would build the new reality, brick by painstaking brick, and it would be his, not theirs.
The air in the National Archives was thick with the scent of aged paper and quiet contemplation. Dr. Ilara Vance, a historian whose life was dedicated to untangling the knots of the past, ran a gloved finger over the brittle edge of a century-old letter. It belonged to Elias Thorne, a forgotten industrialist whose immense wealth had once powered the city of Athol. Elias's legacy, as written in the official histories, was one of unparalleled economic growth. His factories had lifted thousands out of poverty, and his name was synonymous with progress. But as Ilara meticulously pieced together the fragments of his personal correspondence, a darker tapestry emerged. The long road of Elias's ambition was paved not just with gold, but with polluted rivers and the silent suffering of his workforce. The letter in her hand was a plea. penned by a junior engineer named Samuel in 1925, warning Elias that the effluent from the main chemical plant was poisoning the municipal water source. Elias's curt, one-line reply, scrawled in the margin, dismissed the concern as minor operational costs. He had chosen quarterly profits over public health. Samuel was fired. The incident was scrubbed from company records. For nearly 100 years, the city reaped the rewards of Elias's efficiency and bore the hidden burden of his negligence. The toxic remnants of the plant's byproducts had leached into the soil, quietly contaminating the land, resulting in inexplicable health crises that plagued the community a generation later. Ilara closed the folder, the weight of the revelation heavy on her shoulders. Elias Thorne had been a hero to the previous generation, a titan who embodied the triumph of human endeavor. Yet, to the future generation, the very one Ilara saw battling chronic illnesses and inheriting poisoned earth, he was the ghost haunting their present. The impact of his actions was not a sudden explosion, but a slow-motion catastrophe. It taught Ilara a profound truth about history. A legacy is not defined by monuments or initial headlines, but by the quiet, deferred consequences of one's choices. The positive economic wave had crested and passed, but the toxic ripple effect continued, 100 years long. Ilara knew her task was not to simply condemn Elias, but to illuminate the entirety of the long road he laid. She aimed to show the children of Athel that they were not cursed by an unknown fate, but shaped by a knowable past. By acknowledging the full truth, they could finally begin the arduous work of cleaning up, not just the water, but the systemic thinking that allowed short-term gain to jeopardize the health of their descendants. The historian's job, she concluded, was to ensure that the mistakes of the past were not buried, but exhumed and understood, so that the next generation could choose a different, cleaner road to the future. Elias Thorne's story was no longer a celebration of success, but a solemn warning inscribed across the city's poisoned landscape. The pen might be mightier than the sword, but a secret choice, left undiscovered, could be more devastating than both.
The final rays of the setting sun bled across the granite monument, illuminating the names etched into its surface. Each name was a chapter, a sacrifice, a testament to the long, turbulent journey that had brought them to this moment. Ilara, her grandmother's hands still tracing the cool stone, felt the weight of history, not as a burden, but as a deep, resonating hum beneath her feet. Generations ago, her ancestors had fought for a basic, ferocious freedom, the right to speak, to assemble, to simply be without fear of the boot or the chain. That fight had ended officially, but Ilara knew its spirit was eternal. Freedom wasn't a destination, it was a daily practice, a vigilance against the creeping shadows of complacency and control. She looked out at the city, a vibrant, sprawling metropolis where different languages blended into a single energetic roar, and understood that its current liberty was only as strong as the collective will to protect it. The city's greatest ongoing challenge remained justice. The old systemic inequalities, though reshaped and subtler now, hadn't vanished. The fight had shifted from outright oppression to the nuanced battlefield of equitable resource distribution, bias in emerging AI, and ensuring every voice, regardless of its volume, could reach the halls of power. Justice was not a perfectly balanced scale, Ilara mused, but a constant, imperfect, and necessary recalibration. Her generation was armed with data and dialogue, tackling the inherited problems with new tools and renewed moral resolve. And then there was identity. The original struggle was for recognition, for marginalized groups to claim their inherent humanity and belonging. Today, the debate was richer, more complex. People were no longer just claiming a space, but defining it, moving beyond binary labels to embrace a dazzling spectrum of selfhood. Ilara's friend, Kale, a historian who curated the digital archives, often said that the true legacy of the past was the freedom to become one's unwritten self. Their identity was a bridge, honoring the struggles that secured their right to choose, even as they forged entirely new paths. Standing beside Ilara, her younger cousin Ren took a photo of the monument. "It's so old, Ren," clicking the shutter. Ilara smiled. "The stone is old, Ren, but the ideas, they're brand new. They have to be. We have to make them new every day." She stepped away from the monument, turning her face toward the horizon where the first star of the night was just beginning to glimmer. The story of their people wasn't concluded. It had simply reached the end of a long paragraph. The next chapter, the unwritten tomorrow, was not an inevitable utopia, but a vast blank page. Its themes, freedom, justice, identity, would endure, demanding fresh courage from every future generation. The past had given them the vocabulary, the future awaited their sentence.